My name is Bee Daws of Bee Daws Puppetry. This right here is my sister Lotte, twin sister Lotte. She's going to be joining me for these videos to show you some things to do with puppetry. So we're going to just do some basic principles of puppetry for this first video, and the next two videos are going to be more specific styles of puppetry. So if you want to try this at home, then you need to grab yourself a puppet. Ta-da! So this is a type of handheld puppet. She's kind of a bunraku puppet, which we'll go into later, but she's just going to be here for showing you the basic principles of puppetry in a physical form, because it's hard to explain otherwise. So there are a few other things to be aware of, but I'm just going to go through basic principles that I think are very important in puppetry. So first of all, we have muscle and gravity. So obviously this is an inanimate object and you need to make sure that it has physical weight. So the way to do this is to, I guess, hold the puppet down so that it has a little bit of weight, but also when you're holding it, it's got a little bit of gravity in it. So you're not going, like I like to call it, moonwalking or moon man. So as Lotte's showing you, if she walks across the thing, she's floating. That looks really unrealistic. But if she's got a little bit of weight to her, even if it is quite comical, you can see that she's hitting the floor a little bit more. That's really important when showing an inanimate object in real life, because it shows it has space. The next thing is about the puppeteer. So this is about the focus of the puppeteer. So you are not going to be looking around the room, because otherwise it's very distracting. Your eyes as the puppeteer need to be on the puppet at all times. This is really important when it comes to performing, because if you are seen as a puppeteer, if somebody is turning to see you, they are going to follow your eye line and be directly on the puppet. And this goes with any puppeteers that you're working with. So if you're working with more than one, as you'll see later on in bunraku puppetry, all of you have to be focusing on the puppet. It's very important. Next is the focus of the puppet. So each puppet will have an eye line. Pip, the puppet, does have actual eyes, so it's easy to make sure that she is looking somewhere. But obviously, you need to make sure that she's not unrealistically looking. So say if she's looking at this pen on the floor, she's going to have to actually look in a realistic way, rather than sort of looking around, or even when she's walking, she's going to be looking where she's going, the same way as we'll show in later videos. If you're talking to another puppet, then obviously the puppets have to be looking at each other, otherwise it will make no sense and the puppet will be looking elsewhere. Your next principle that we're going to focus on is stillness, and as puppeteers this is probably the most important one after breath. Lots of people have a habit of overacting and making the puppet look quite noisy. It just looks unrealistic. If you're really trying to make this puppet look like a realistic being, it's really important to not overdo it. The most satisfying thing about a puppet is when it does something so human and does it so perfectly. So if she was to just sort of, brush her hair back from her face, that's a very minimal movement, but it's not sort of exaggerated. You as a human, we don't stand there going scratch, 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 or tufting our hair or anything like that. So it's really important to make sure that with that gravity, you have that focus and you have that very stillness, because it's very satisfying to just watch a puppet stand there almost. The next and most important thing of any puppet and puppeteering is the breath of the puppet. Sometimes it's quite hard to show breath in a puppet, but it can just be shown with slight movement in the puppet. So as you can see, if she's just slightly raising up and down, this gives the idea that she's a living, breathing thing. And it just gives it a little bit more of a realism, rather than just standing there dead. If you just stood there really, really still, you can see how that's completely changed the dynamic of the puppet. But when the puppeteer starts breathing a little bit and adding that gravity, you can see how much it wraps up. Now finally, we're going to talk a little bit about emotional movement. This is basically, again, very similar to the stillness idea, that you don't want to move the puppet just for the sake of it. You want to actually move it because they've seen something or they're going to do something. So for example, if Pip was going to find, and I'll join in a second to show you how she would walk. if she saw something on the floor, you would want her to look at it, be inquisitive, and then look. So we'll show you kind of two versions of this. So first we'll kind of do it the really bad way, that she sees something and she straight away kind of goes over and looks at it. Whereas, you know, normal people will probably notice it and move with intention. She can't really kneel down because of the way she's made, but we'll try and film a close-up version of that. But you can see how the emotional movement is really important for that. And other things that you can consider when thinking about the principles of puppetry. Physical contact, obviously if the puppet touches somebody, how that might be a reaction to each other as the person reacting and also the puppet reacting. The puppeteer and the puppet's relationship, are they able to see each other? Are they able to interact with each other? You'll be able to see in lots of other puppetry theatre shows, things like that. You'll see that sometimes the puppet interacts with the puppeteer, which is really nice. So no upstaging of the puppet either with that. Like, it's very important with the focus on the puppet that the puppet has the space it needs, because otherwise what's the point in having the puppet there? Puppeteer stance, so this is not relevant for what we're doing right now because we're doing tabletop stuff, but making sure that you as a puppeteer is comfortable. Usually we call it the puppeteer stance, whereas essentially a squat situation. It means that there's a little bit more commitment, you're kind of ready to go. Rhythm, so emotional movement and breath, need to make sure that if maybe they're running, there's a little bit more of the breath and the emotional movement is kind of in sync with each other. And I think that probably one of, again, the most important things is the belief. So if the puppeteer doesn't believe that this thing is real, how are they going to make you believe that it's real? So we may think, oh, well, this is just an item, this is just an object. But if we're actually like really invested in the puppet and we're making it live, we're doing all these principles, we get invested as an audience member, and you can see that it's so much more powerful. So those are a very quick rundown of some of the principles, but in the next videos you'll see the kind of styles that you can do with puppetry and how you can link those principles in with that.